Mula, interestingly enough, well, I tell you what, I'm not going to get in to what I was going to start with next until a few minutes in, right?
Okay.
So let's start with a couple of stories that very well define the energy of Mula. And one is about Ravana, and the other one is about Kamsa. Ravana was a demon that in the Ramayana abducted Sita, who was the wife of Rama. But prior to this, he was also a devotee of Shiva. And he performed a lot of austerities in order to get the boon of great strength. But what ended up happening was he became drunk with his own power. So he then went and he abducted Sita, who was the wife of Rama, who was an incarnation of Vishnu. Mm-hmm. And just kind of giving a summary of the story, basically when Rama caught up with him, Rama killed him with one of his arrows. But because Ravana had been killed by an arrow of Rama and therefore Vishnu, he was taken to the highest celestial realm. And because he had been such a devotee of Lord Shiva, he was given a high place, even though Rama went after him and killed him for what he did. Let's talk about Kamsa. Kamsa was the uncle of Krishna. Okay. And the story of Kamsa really illustrates the concept of how we as individuals can almost practice hostility towards the universe or towards God or whatever it is you want to call it, through utilizing our ego. When we don't like things being a certain way, we go, well, I'm going to do this to change it, even though it might not be right for me.
Right.
And sometimes we very much go against ourselves and we do something even though we know it's not good for us. And we become very self-destructive. And Mula can be, on one level, a very self-destructive nakshatra. Okay, but the story of Kamsa was that he had a sister named Devaki. And Devaki married Vasudeva. And while the two of them were proceeding to their wedding abode, they were told by an angel that their 8th child would destroy their uncle, who was Kamsa. Now, Kamsa found out about this, and he decided he was going to throw the two of them into jail so he could keep a close look on them. And every time a child was born to the two, he took the child and would kill it. But when their 8th child, Krishna, was born, they used divine assistance to get Krishna to a safe place so that he could grow up without Kamsa knowing about him. And when Kamsa found out that Krishna was alive, the two got involved in a conflict, and Krishna destroyed Kamsa. Mm-hmm. So the deaths of both Ravana and Kamsa were the deaths of their ego, which actually marked their spiritual awakening. Mm-hmm. Interesting, and in relevance to understanding Mula, when both of them were pointed out, when it was pointed out to them that they were behaving wrongly. Let's take Ravana, for example. He was told that he was behaving in an unethical manner. Well, then he became even more cruel, right? Because how dare you insult me? Right. Or how dare the universe throw this my way so that I have to, cope through it? How dare this happen? Right? So it represents, through Mula Nakshatra, an awakening on one level. And that's why it's Sattvic at its basis. It's Sattvic at its foundation. Here we start the Sattvic Nakshatras. So one level of us knows, right? We see something. But then it's built upon with Rajasic energy, active, very active energy, putting effort into making things a certain way. Okay, so there's the Sattvic realization, but yet we persist with the things that we know are not healthy for us. Mm-hmm. Because this is a Kama-driven nakshatra, it's driven by desire. So then what ends up happening, because we're basically warring with our own nature, and there's a very turbulent process that happens here because the tamasic nakshatras have ended. So these Sattvic tendencies are awakening. But there's still a war that's going on inside of oneself about all of this. One's struggling with it. because we've gone through this process of, initially being robbed of our inherent divinity, becoming encased in a physical body, having to undergo all this incarnation, and now we're beginning to start the journey home. But boy, are we a little bit pissed about all this. And we were beginning to have a lot of fun here on Earth, and now we're recognizing, well, no, this isn't right. I want things to be this way. So with Mula Nakshatra, it's like the concept of banging your head against a brick wall, which is going to give you a headache. And you can have an awakening after that headache, but I don't recommend, banging your head against a brick wall in order to have that awakening. It's not going to be helpful. So the deity that's connected to Mula is Niriti, the goddess of destruction. And Mula gives the power to dissolve, to ruin, or to destroy. But what are we trying to dissolve, ruin, or destroy on a positive level? Well, we're trying to get rid of the ego. The negative tendencies of the ego, I should say, because on some levels we need our sense of individuality, but we're trying to get rid of the egocentric mind that thinks that it's doing everything, that it's running the show. And that's the process that goes on through Mula.
So it's bringing more awareness to the ego to finalize its destruction?
Bringing more awareness to the ego to finalize its destruction. But usually what happens once one becomes aware of that is one begins to become even more embroiled in the ego. Mm-hmm. Mula is ruled by Ketu, which Ketu can give the proper sense of detachment and understanding through which to work through all of the energies that are associated with Mula. But it can also make things a little bit chaotic, because Ketu is the dragon's tail. So it's divorced from the head, which on one level would give it detachment, but on another level would mean that things could get a little bit chaotic and one doesn't apply right understanding to a particular situation. And so things tend to go astray with this particular nakshatra. People who have, let's say that somebody has their moon there. And again, through Ketu and Rahu, we're always looking at the energies of their lords, so to speak, when we're looking to determine how a planet is doing in that nakshatra, and how the planet is supported by the lord of that nakshatra, right? And we'll get into more of that when we go into the techniques that are associated with interpreting some of these different nakshatras. But a person can live a very pained existence if they have their moon in Mula, without proper wisdom or insight to understand the experiences that they're going through, because they can get continually caught up in this concept of all these really horrible things are happening to me. Why? Well, I see these horrible things happening to me, and I'm always trying to do something about it. Mm-hmm. But that never works out right. Well, again, there comes the concept of surrender. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take that surrender before you're able to have that awakening or to have that awareness. A planet that's well supported in Mula, well, that person could become very driven to do a very sattvic-oriented thing if one has the right understanding.
Right.
Ravana was quickly transported to the highest celestial realm after he was killed by that arrow. So, there's the swiftness that can happen with that. So Mula can also function in a positive way, but before it functions in that positive way, it's like one has to go down to the very bottom of the process. And it's no surprise that Mula means root. So one has to get to the very root of the situation through going through all the difficulties that are connected with this particular nakshatra.
So then with this nakshatra, again, thinking of activities that are supportive during planets appropriate to this nakshatra, meaning that, for example, the moon or maybe even Mars. If we have something that we're trying to let go of, break apart, destroy, so that we can grow from, and sort of maybe let go of things that were holding us back. Would it be having the moon in this nakshatra or an appropriate planet in this nakshatra that we would want to do that?
That would be a good thing to do with this. I would say also if you need to research something.
Okay, research something. So in the sense of breaking things apart to kind of get to its separate pieces, or is there another reason?
Exactly. Breaking how does this work? I have to dissolve this. I have to get to the very root of it so that I understand. So
it could be a good time to go have a checkup done, or if you're trying to, would that make sense to
it? It's interesting because since you mentioned that, I would say that Mula does have an association on some levels. People who have had prominent career planets in Mula, I found to be physicians or herbalists. It's interesting because Mula is symbolized by a bunch of roots tied together. So there is also that side of it. So, and that would be dually supported by wanting to get to the root of what's causing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Surgery might be another good thing.
Yeah, surgery. And I'm wondering if people who have the moon in Mula, or if they have their moon in Mula, or 10th house lord in Mula, or 10th cusp in Mula, could that also speak to someone who has skills and things like psychological analysis or things of this nature?
I have encountered a lot of people who are interested in astrology, who will have, very interested in astrology, like they want to become astrologers. Scientists, that's another thing too.
Right. Yeah, I can think of quite a few people actually, now that I go back over my database in my head of people who were astrologers who had like a moon in Mula or 10th lord in Mula or something of this nature.
Yeah, because you want to get to the very bottom of something. You're never going to be satisfied, right? And almost in a demonic sort of way. It's like, I got to get to the bottom of this.
Right. Well, here's a quick question, because I've noticed people who have that never ever seem to think they get to the bottom of it.
Exactly. Yes.
Is there any aspect of Mula where they would finally say, okay, I've gotten to the bottom of it? Or is it just a consistent thing where they will just keep going no matter what?
Well, I think the process that would happen with that is they would go through phases, right? They would quite probably, become very engrossed in getting to the bottom of it, right? And then they would find that they were getting kind of stuck and be forced to have to step back a little bit in order to, see clearly, or intuition might point them in the right direction rather than trying to use their analytical mind.
Right.
Because it's a sattvic-based nakshatra, so the things that come through that nakshatra are generally going to come from a sattvic basis, not from the rajasic side.
Right. Okay, I see. That makes sense.
It's the rajasic side that's always going to bring the person back to that root, which is sattvic-oriented.
Right.
So then they have an opening and an awakening, and then they're able to see something, but it likely didn't come through the strength of pursuing it through their own force of intellect.
Right.
It likely just appeared to them or was right in front of their face the whole time. But then they would be compelled to go back into something else.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Good. Well, what else do we have about Mula? Anything? Let's see. Did we go through?
We didn't touch on the fact, and this is interesting to me. It's a Brahma nakshatra.
Yeah, there. Okay.
So in order for something new to be created, something old has to be destroyed. Right? And the basis above with Mula is breaking things apart, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the heavens will break things apart so that we're able to see things more clearly. But then down here on planet Earth, we're still crushing those things that the heaven is, breaking apart for us.
Right.
We're still not seeing it, right? Mm-hmm. But through the basis above and basis below comes the power to destroy, because eventually that process of applying our own force and strength of will and strength of mind to try to sort something that really can be right in front of our face the whole time is going to lead to an awakening. So we come to that awakening in a roundabout way that we might think was through our own force. but it's not through our own force. On one level. On another level, it is, because we're applying that force, which ultimately leads to hitting a dead end, which forces us to take a look.
Okay.
But there's always a sense of dissatisfaction with Mula energy, because the individual keeps going at something, only to discover that, really, that was a mistake. But it's not a mistake, because the mistake led you to understand that you need to surrender.
Right.
Yeah. I think that covers it for.
Good. Okay.